lead us in prayer.
Okay.
Greg?
Let's pray. Father, thank you for this moment, and thank you for just this beautiful day, this day that we remember you and your Son for so many reasons, Father. Thank you for the sacrifice. Thank you for the gift. And Father, we are so grateful for the relationship that you desire with us. We thank you for seeking us out and just wanting to be with us. Father, I ask a special blessing on Tim and Kim tonight as they present this information. We look forward to it. We're excited about it, and we are blessed because of it. Father, thank you for your Son, and it's in his name that we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, Greg.
Thank you. We are just recapping a little bit here. We're talking about Emmanuel journaling. Oops, I definitely need to pause or put my phone on silent. Sorry about that. And becoming aware of the presence of God, like God with us, as the translation of Emmanuel is. And but tonight we're going to build a brain, which is a fun thing. We're not building it physically with you guys since we're not present. We prepared a PowerPoint. I did it. I did this PowerPoint. I feel pretty happy with it and somewhat embarrassed also.
It's great. It's really great.
Because of what it looks like, but it's going to be better than just trying to talk about it with nothing to look at. So bear that in mind while you're watching, and we'll see how it goes. But I think before we got started on that part, we wanted to share a little bit about this week with the Emmanuel journaling process. Tim and I both had a couple of things that we wanted to point out, and I think we might have spoken towards some of it last time when the recording was over. But one of the thoughts that I had shared last time was this Emmanuel journaling process as a spiritual practice is like linking arms with God. And then, I have my arm linked with Tim, but it's way down here. Linking arms with God, and then walking forward into something that's difficult and asking God for his reflection on it while I proceed. And while I was doing one time this week, I hit a point where I didn't have anything to say about one of the prompts, and that was, I think it was, I'm happy to be with you, but I can't remember exactly which one it was, and I felt like I just popped out of it. It was like I was really engaged in what I was doing, and then I popped out, and I felt like I was thinking about my problem that I was concerned about, and I was distracted. And I remember our friends Michael and Claudia Hendricks that shared this practice with us. They just said that happens to everyone, and if you feel like you're stuck, then step back into interactive gratitude. You don't have to begin the process over entirely, but just step back into gratitude and listen for God's response, and it turns things back on, like the relational circuits in your brain. And I thought that was true. I experienced that this week, and I felt grateful for that. So there's something you were going to say too?
Yeah, I don't like doing Emmanuel journaling, just to be honest. Like I don't like anything that I think I may end up feeling vulnerable or emotional about. So I just want to put that out there to say, don't want to do it. But I do get the reasons why it's important, and not just the reason why I should do it myself, but the reason why I should read it to Kim and see the look of acceptance and joy on her face when I read it. Like that's a piece of I want to say connecting, but what's the word? Attachment that takes place. So one morning this week, there was something difficult that I was working through and trying to figure out, and I thought, I should do Emmanuel journaling now. And if this weren't recorded, I would tell you, but I feel like part of it would be confessing other people's sins. So it's not confessing their sins, but that's the only reason why I won't say the specifics of it. But I started with being thankful about the birds in my front yard. I'm officing in the garage, and I leave the garage door up, and weather's perfect, and there are 1,000 birds, it seems like, and half of them are cardinals. And so I love to just watch them dart in and out and play. And so that I started with my gratitude there. And then I'm going through talking with God, letting him talk to me about what he sees, what he hears. And it was just really special. And then when there were parts where in a non-harsh way, he was saying, Tim, I know that you are judging these people kind of to be on pause as far as spiritual growth goes, and they aren't on pause. They are still growing. And so it was weird, like he wasn't being mean or harsh, but it was inviting me to see how he would see the other people in the situation. And there was one point where, is it the question, I see your weakness tenderly or something like that. And I felt like he didn't give me any words. But suddenly all the cardinals came rushing back into the tree closest to me, and a bunch of them were playing in that moment. And it felt like, oh, that's God's response, that he sees me and he's really with me. Almost as, hey, Tim, you said this is your connection. And so I'm going to bring that connection back up. And it was really a special time.
That's cool. It reminds me of a story that I've shared with some of you guys before, but just about butterflies being important to me and felt like a love language with God. And that seems like it's on the same wavelength. It's without words, but it speaks that way. So what we want to look at tonight is related to the process that we were learning in journaling, and it's putting some of the science behind it. And I value that you guys would be willing to practice the journaling portion first, because I think it's important to step into something and try it. But this will give us a little bit more structure behind the matching of the science portion about why it works. And if you want to look for the screen sharing, that'd be great. Some of the value of this process is maturing our attachment center with God, and it helps me to act like myself when I'm under stress, when difficult emotions are present for me, sadness and anger and fear. Despair or hopelessness is one of the ones that this group talks about too. And it's not denying that those things are present, but it's an invitation, really answering the invitation of Emmanuel that God really is with us. So we're going to look at joy in the brain tonight. And this is just a reminder that joy fuels the fast track of the brain. That's the right side of the brain, in ways that God designed. So the relational circuits in our brain on the right side process 6 times a second. They're receiving information, and it has the possibility to process all the way through these 4 levels that are kind of described as the floors of an elevator, because there's some that are pre-conscious thought that just happen when you notice things that are going on, and then they progress into conscious thought, but very quick. The first one is it's actually about attachment. If something is personal to me, then my brain is going to hang on to it. So there's a space in our brain that evaluates that attachment. Do you want to try to take this part?
So
yeah.
This won't really work like we had imagined, because none of our friends from Mexico are on here.
However, Kara and Christy might.
Kara and Christy could
Yes.
notice, but we were going to ask, did anybody notice Kim and I's background? Did it connect with anybody?
I'm going to stop sharing for a second. Oh, my dad. Okay. Do you know what it is?
Well,
I don't know either, but I wondered if it was the Henderson's house, but I don't know.
That's a good guess. It's not.
I'm here. This is Nancy.
Nancy.
It reminded me of the
Oh,
house.
it is. How
That's
sneaky it's
actually-
here.
That's where we took the picture of the hand wreath. Right in front of the
Oh.
stairs.
Scoot over so that she can see the whole photo.
No,
Is it
but
not?
it looks like it.
Okay.
It does look really Mexican, like traditionally. So that's
It's-
a good guess too.
It's the set for the TV show Chavo del Ocho,
Oh.
which
Cool.
is like, how would you describe it, Nancy? Mexico's version of Andy Griffith?
No.
Or
Carol Burnett more or
yeah, well, I mean, it's
Yeah, it's really ridiculous and
been on TV for
yeah.
40 years. I mean, it's
don't
been on
know.
TV forever, and Mexicans would look at this and immediately they would know this is personal to them. Like they would recognize it from their childhood. This does not connect with our childhood, so it doesn't register with us as being important.
Yeah. So this space in your brain, okay. The attachment center, like there's a filtering section or a signaling segment that's in the thalamus and the basal ganglia. That's not the only place that attachment is taking place, but it is a, I was going to point to you where I wanted you to start it, but we'll just click through. I shouldn't have stopped
yeah.
it, I guess. So, but the point is, if something is personal to you, it's going to stick. And your brain will process thought about it, feeling and thought about it. If it's not personal, then you might not even notice that it's there. And that was why we chose that set to be there. Your brain might not really pay attention to it, but when it matters to you, it gets passed on to other levels to see what's going on.
When Michael and Claudia presented this in Tulsa, they said, for instance, did anybody notice the fire alarm on the wall behind us? And it's a big red box, and nobody had noticed it was there because it wasn't important. But they asked, what about who smelled coffee when you walked in? And 75% of the room raised their hands because coffee is important to them. So they smelled it immediately, whereas 25, they don't care about coffee. They didn't notice that smell when they walked in.
Well, it's cool to me that Christy associated it with something she knows, and Nancy too, because it has some similarity to places that you have seen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it works in that way. I'm going to skip on over that. This circuit that all the information travels, like this part is proven by brain scans, which I just think is fun and fascinating. There are books that you can read about it. I can tell you more about that later, but all of the information comes into our brain on the right side, and it travels this one-way path, and it has to go through. That's a misstatement. It can't go backwards. It has to go forward through the path. It doesn't have to hit every single step in this path, but when we're functioning well, it does. So is it personal to me is that first question. And as you're thinking about these, they're related to the steps in the Emmanuel journal that we were learning. So the next one is, the next question is about attunement. This is about my own reaction to that light bulb thing that went off. It reacts with me in some way. It's either good, bad, or scary. That's like the three main buckets that might be activated. So if you noticed the photo behind, I think most of you guys that associated it with something good, but your brain is wired to pay attention to anything that's personal to you, and you relate it to either good, you relate it to bad, or you relate it to scary. And these are things that happen. I'm sorry, I said attunement, but this is assessment. This happens before you're thinking. So this isn't something that you're choosing to think about it. These are your automatic associations with the item or the person or the event. This takes place in the amygdala, so it's the same area that runs like our fight or flight protocols, and it happens for a protection for us before we're even aware of what's going on. So we have some examples. What's that, Dad?
Are you saying both of those? Is it personal and the reactions are automatic before you do any thinking?
That's right.
Yeah.
The first layer is it personal? I'm going to hang on to it and I will continue to process it through this track in my brain. If it's not personal, it just gets kicked out. Like our brains have to filter a lot of the information that's in our environment because we can't hang on to everything. So the first sort of the first litmus or whatever filter is it personal? And then the next one is, in what way? This is my assessment of the thing. So I was thinking for myself, like I used to be really afraid of spiders when I was small. And for me, they were scary. And we have these megaphones that we chose to represent that. So when you see something scary, your brain shouts out about it like an alarm. And we wondered if one of you guys would be willing to say scary when prompted, like just over and over without stopping for, a few times. Anybody willing? Yay, Christy. All right. So, when I would see a spider when I was small, it would be personal to me. Even if I thought I saw the shadow of a spider, or even where I had found a spider before, like in one of my shoes by the fireplace, then I started to get nervous about it. And it would pass through if it was personal to me, and then I would hit this second stage and it would be scary. And do you mind hollering about that for just a few times?
Am I supposed to be seeing something on the screen?
Oh, no, can you see like this PowerPoint?
It just says joy in the brain, but it's not like moving through. I feel like, are we down or just do it now? Is that what?
Can other people see something that says good, bad, scary?
No, but there's stuff on the side.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I think down low is it personal to me is number 4. Attachment is 5, but it doesn't go.
You're on slide 1. You're just on slide 1.
Well,
Yes.
That's funny because on our screen,
There
the
we go.
Now you moved.
Now it's on
Now you
6.
moved to 8.
Okay.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, let's
Okay.
see.
We'll go back to the presentation view. No.
No. Don't.
Oh, from
sorry.
the beginning. I think we can actually just. Oh,
Let's try this over.
okay.
Wait.
Oh, thank you, Craig. We didn't see our chat, but you guys feel free to say that. We don't know how to do this very well. So
This happened the other day with Jason and I. Okay, so.
Can you see slide number? We don't have to hide it. We can just leave all the stuff there. You're on
And
7.
now you're on slide 7. Is this personal to me?
Okay. And I want to move on to slide 8.
There you are.
Okay. I think that's fine.
Okay, so just as you're saying the story, I'm just gonna say scary, or when you tell me.
Go ahead and just say scary a few times.
Now,
when I see
scary,
the spider.
scary, 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 scary.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. But that's what goes on in our brain, and it actually is insistent. And it wants us to notice, it's important that it gets noticed. That's part of our protection. I have a second one, and that's related to having liver for dinner. Like my mom would make liver, and I'm certain that none of us kids liked it. So for us, that was bad. And if we thought we smelled liver in the house, or if we thought maybe we saw it in my mom's grocery cart, like that would trigger the feeling of it being bad before we ever even had to eat it again for dinner. So would, Kara, would you mind saying bad and say it like insistently?
Producer.
Bad, 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 bad.
Yes, yeah, it was that bad. It was really bad. And good, I mean, there's a ton of things that I feel really good about when, like if I knew it might snow the next day, anytime that I saw the window, if I thought it was maybe going to start snowing that night, if I walked past the window, it would feel good and I would be wondering about it, even if it hadn't snowed yet. But for sure, once I saw it, that was very good. So, Andrea, do you mind doing good and just saying good over and over?
Good.
That's very good. Okay. Do you
Okay.
have a couple?
So once that registers in your brain, it does not stop. So for me, cheesecake is good. So whenever I think cheesecake, Andrea,
Good.
and then I found out I'm lactose intolerant, and some of the issues I was having resulted from cheesecake. So it was bad. Who was bad? Kara?
Bad, 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 bad.
But the good and the bad, the good doesn't stop.
Good.
They
Right.
happen at the same time. I don't know if you'll be able to hear it that way, but try it.
Ready, set, go, Kara. Good.
And maybe I'm in Mexico and we've got to go to the park. And in Mexico, there aren't bathrooms available all the time. So it's good, it's bad, and it's scary. So all three of you together.
Bad, 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 bad.
Yes. And so once one of those messages comes online, those messages will always come online. And so we will have a chorus ringing through our heads, maybe of all three words.
Yeah. And like Tim said, you can't delete one of those triggering reactions. You can add to it as your life progresses. So I still, I get a little jolt of fear about spiders, even if they're really tiny, and I know that it's fine, I still have a nervousness. Okay, I think we can move on through these. Oh, they're not going to respond quite the way that they were supposed to, so I am going to just proceed. So then we get to level 3, and that level asks the question, can I share this? Can I share this? I wanted to put a telephone in there because honestly, I thought that it would match the PowerPoint a little bit better. But when we were talking with our friends that were sharing this info with us, they suggested to make sure that it still is represented by people. And it's supposed to be people facing each other. And there's a part of your brain that's asking, this is like filter number 3. Okay, good, bad, or scary, one of the 3. Can I share this information? And this part is related to our attunement. It's related to our mutual mind, that we talked about mutual mind with God, but we also get into a space of mutual mind with other people. We read their nonverbal cues, if I want to tell my kids that they're up to something that I want them to stop, I just have to give them a look, and they know that I'm not pleased with what they're doing, and they're probably going to stop. Or if they're feeling nervous about something, I can give them a look that's like, you got this, and my eyes connect with their eyes, and I don't have to say anything, and they know that I'm thinking, man, my mom knows that I've got this and I can do it. That's part of our cingulate cortex. Are you going to say something?
Yeah. So if the answer is no, can I share this with somebody? And the answer is no. Then it's as if we go ahead and we take that, what do I do with this? And we send it to the left side of our brain, the logic and the decision making. But it goes to that side of the brain with the voices yelling, good, bad, scary, good, bad, scary, good, bad, scary. And if we think we can't share this with somebody, it's probably just bad, scary, bad, scary, bad, scary. And that's when we start making decisions and we think, now, why did I do that? Why did I make that sort of a decision?
What were you going to say, Andrea?
Yeah, I have a question about that. When you say, can I share this? Is this talking about, like, can I share this because it's private, or can I share this because I do not have a level of relationship with anybody that is, it's too deeply personal for me to share? Or is it?
It could be for any reason, but the idea is some of it is related to shame, like, do I need to keep this to myself? Does anybody get me? Am I going to get laughed at? Am I going to receive judgment? Those are part of the filters. It's part of like our risk manager. Or would anybody even understand? And those questions are all really similar. I'm saying what I know about it. I'm not an expert about it, but this is, so I would say yes to all of your questions. The essential answer boiling down is still, can I talk about this?
Okay. Because something embarrassing could happen, and I could be with you out, if you and I are walking through the mall and something embarrassing happens to me in a restroom, I might come out of the restroom and think, I really like Kim, but I don't know her that well. But when I get home, I'm telling Scott what just happened.
Okay. That actually is an escape route, because if you're feeling all alone in the world and I can't tell this to anyone, then I can't proceed on to like my next step, which is related to identity. But if you can imagine telling it to Scott, then you're not as trapped, because you can imagine, like, can I share this? Well, not this second, but man, this will be funny later. Or, I can share the load of this later. I actually was thinking about this. I used to, and I actually still do it, like, I sweat a lot, and I have been this way since adolescence. But when we moved to Ridgecrest, so when I was 15, we moved, and it got a lot worse, like when we moved there. And I realized as I moved into young adulthood, like by the time Tim and I got married, it was funnier to me. I wasn't as stressed about it. I shared it with people, or I said, that it happened. But in high school, man, I didn't want anybody to know, which actually, that made it worse, And I would like you guys, there was nothing good about it. It was bad, and it was also scary. And so just for the purpose of experiencing that again, would you mind hollering about that a few times? Bad and scary?
Scary,
Scary.
Yeah, and I did. I think I told my mom about it some, but it wasn't something I thought, when I get home, I can tell my mom about this. It was like in the moment, I didn't want it to be happening. I was really stressed about it. And then, it didn't put me into a total tailspin, but it wasn't like a picture of emotional health, Would you want to share Michael's example regarding anything else? I'll leave it like that.
So in Tulsa, when Michael and Claudia were doing this presentation, I think somebody said, like, diarrhea. Well, like, you can't, like, that's something that you could never share. And Michael was like, Actually, have you ever been around missionaries? Because when missionaries get together, that's what they share. We've all lived very funny incidents, like to the point where before, I don't even want this to be recorded. When I would hear,
scary,
yes,
scary,
bad, scary. When missionaries would talk about poop your pants story, I was like, stop. I don't want to hear them. Bad, scary. Nothing good can come of that. We were in Mexico for 11 and a half years. And in the last month, I got my story. And my first thought was, I can never tell anybody this. I can never tell.
That was your first thought?
That was my first thought.
Okay.
But then, it's a funny story. So, yeah, so the stories can change.
Okay. Sadly, I even had these animations that we're just going to bail on. When you can't share it.
I want to try one more time to see if it'll work. And if
I think it's going to start over from the beginning.
I don't know what that's doing.
Okay. It's okay.
Never mind.
Nah. Is our Zoom call still there? Are you guys still there?
Yep.
Oh, good. Because your little bar on our screen disappeared, and I was like, "This is going to go bad, bad and scary, bad, scary, bad, scary." Okay, so I actually want to get to right here, 17. This already popped up, but and Tim mentioned it too, when we can't share it and we can't imagine sharing it with anybody, or there's a lot of people that we don't want to find out, it gets us stuck in that alarm cycle and the yelling. Funny enough, even if it's something good, but we can't share about it for some reason, then it's like it doesn't process all the way through these levels the way that our brain would be running most efficiently. It's not like we never should notice that something's bad or scary, but it shouldn't hijack completely our higher level of functioning and who we are. But sometimes it does. So then the next level, this fourth layer, is, what do my people do? That's the question that's associated with it. And I want to make sure I didn't skip anything really important in being flustered about that. I think I can get back to that stuff. This is located in the right prefrontal cortex, so it's the PFC. And this question isn't just, it's like, I'm sorry, we didn't, it was hard to find an icon for this. So the idea is three faces looking at each other. And we are always one of the faces in this scenario, but it's group identity. And that's part of our higher level of thinking. It's related to our attachment because it continues to filter through these other levels. But the group identity piece puts people that we are attached to, and this starts to form from the time that you're small. It puts people into those other spots, and then it's almost conversational, like how do we respond and what do we do in situations like this? So, I mean, generally it would be a mom and a dad, but if somebody doesn't have one of those figures, then the brain is going to try to replace that spot with someone that the child feels attachment to. And it doesn't have to just be one person that sits in that spot all the time, but there always is a group feel to this dynamic. And it might be like another family member. If one of the parents is not present, it could be a neighbor or a friend, but somebody that I feel attachment to is going to end up in that spot for me.
And it changes. And in adolescence, it moves from parents to peers. And the goal is is to end up having Christ sit in one of those chairs.
So this is the 3 points of view. It's related deeply to our identity center. And in our identity center, we're asking and answering the questions, who are we? So like young kids are really defined at first by their own family. Who are we? And then who am I? But who I am is a reflection of, it's a mirroring of who I see that I am related to my parents. And then as kids grow, they're a little bit more involved in like their school life and community. But as they grow to be adolescents and we get to be teens, that becomes really important. And peer identity takes a much greater space, like in our circle. I was thinking about some of those examples that we shared regarding spiders. You know, I would be feeling fear of spiders when I was small. So the megaphone would be yelling, you know, scary, scary, scary. And I would think, this is super scary. Is there anybody I can share this with? And I can remember going to my dad and asking him if he would please check the bottoms of those. I had these red and white striped footy pajamas that like had separate pants and top. And I would ask him to check into the bottoms of the feet of the pajamas out of fear. And my dad would do it. Like I remember my dad doing it. So it's like, can I share this anyone? Yeah, I can tell my dad that I'm super freaked out of spiders. He would check it for me. And then I could be, I mean, I was young, but I could be more mature and integrated. Like who are we? What kind of a people are we? Like we go ahead and proceed forward with putting on our pajamas, even though there's a risk that there could be spiders in the feet. Like, and I trust my dad telling me that they're not there, you know? That's a really silly and simple example.
Well, and think of
Go
the application or the results of who those faces are and what they tell you we do in these situations. Like even the poop your pants stories. What do my people do right now? We shame ourselves. We don't tell. We bat down the hatches, and it's because we are bad. Think of the difference of that, and we laugh a lot. We laugh at ourselves, and we're embarrassed, and we take some razzing, but in the end, we laugh a lot. So there's a spectrum of possibilities of what do my people do? What do my people do when this happens to them? And even to think about things that people would struggle with in the church body. And when they look at each other and they think, or they ask themselves, what do my people do with this? Well, all we ever do is say, don't ever do it. So I better tamp that down. Or do they say, oh, we accept each other and we forgive each other and we help each other? So there are far-reaching consequences to how we behave as a body.
If we're able to proceed through to level 4, like we're able to share it with somebody else, then part of this prefrontal cortex, like a piece that resides there, is something like a remote control. That if we are connected to our people, the prefrontal cortex is able to just go ahead and acknowledge those reactionary messages of bad, scary, or overactively good that need to be recognized, and then it can shut them off. Like, thank you for notifying me. We're prepared to make a decision about this now. But if we hijack ourselves at level 3 and we decide, this can't be shared. It's too private. It's too embarrassing. Nobody ever does this, or for whatever reason, then we actually shut down part of our mature function. And it's not that the entire left side of the brain doesn't still think about what to do. Logic resides there, but part of our best problem-solving skills are connected to this process of identity and the formation of wisdom is part of that pathway that that we indicated at the beginning. So my best ideas and my most mature possibilities, I'm not going to have access to those when I'm hijacked or emotionally triggered, I guess. So this is like it's like a 4+. I have written down as step 5, but what should I do is related to the left-hand side of the brain, where we have logic and we have critical thinking there. Oddly enough, though, stories and speech also reside in that side of the brain. So all of this right-hand stuff happens, like we said, 6 times a second. That's processing, and it's not related to our problem-solving strategies. It's a quick process related to our identity. Our conscious thought, it does begin, I don't really have that pointer access now, but our conscious thought does begin in these steps 3 and 4, but it's so quick that it's not the place where we sit and weigh our options very well, or analyze what's going on. And it's not even incorporated into our verbal speech. So a lot of what happens on the right-hand side is nonverbal until we finally round the corner down into this side that relates to wisdom. When we don't shut down those blaring megaphones, and we decide, no, I can't share this. I don't really even know what my people would do or who I am, and I'm not prepared to find out. Then our access to wisdom is restricted. It's not that it's gone, because both sides of the brain are working kind of on their own timetable, but we have less access to it. So how it might show up for me, and it shows up a variety of ways for everyone, is the messages keep yelling while I'm trying to figure stuff out. So if you guys wouldn't mind hollering, I don't have an example that I'm ready to share yet. So let's just say, like, when I was in high school and I realized, I think that you can see sweat through my shirt. This is super embarrassing. Bad and scary would be like yelling while I'd be trying to figure it out and trying to cover for it, which weren't effective. So if you guys don't mind going ahead and yelling just while I try to figure it out. Bad, 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 bad. I'm thinking, like, if I just keep my arms down, maybe nobody will notice, but I know that that's probably going to make it worse, and I wish I could get out of here. It's like a great desire to escape. Those are, they're somewhat comical. I don't have as much anxiety about that now, though it can still happen. I think it was worse during adolescence. One of the things that was so impacting when I was learning this information was when we moved here from Mexico. I felt like there were things that were good about the move, and that was present all the time, but there were things for me that felt bad, that felt really sad, and then I felt bad about that. It felt scary to share how hard it was, and even things between Tim and I that were hard. And I hardly talked about it anywhere for a while, even though I had opportunity. And I think I had people that would have listened. So many reasons for that, but just part of my own growth path was to keep it to myself at first and then grow into learning about it. So this was part of a loss of being able to function in a more mature state that is connected to, I was going to say like my best self, but like how my real self would behave, how my most mature self would behave. And I feel like I'm skipping stuff, but I noticed the time. If I see that somebody that I'm close to, like if you're with a child and they go offline because they're feeling embarrassment or shame about something that's going on, you can make eye contact with that kid and you can ask them, what's happening, in a way that invites them sharing that with you. And they will sometimes realize and choose that it's okay to talk about it. And then it's almost like what was them scrambling to keep away from all of these yelling messages becomes reasonable and rational thought again. And it happens with adults too. Sometimes we have better coping strategies when we feel like we're losing our minds. When we're going kind of crazy, we don't always show it, but we have like more obsessive problem solving. But sometimes our anger can be explosive, or it leads toward excessive sadness that we can't find a way out of, like depression. And part of the remedy for that in a real way is the knowledge that God is with us, that Emmanuel is with us, like we were talking about last time, that he is happy to be with me. He's well pleased to be with me. When he looks at me, he feels joy. And like I said before, God is always pleased to be with us. And I think that we don't always believe that or know it, but some of these practices and training can help us to remember it at times when it's difficult. And if we practice in times when we're calm, like we were talking about this, I think in the beginning, there's a lot of crazy going on in the world right now. It's not as calm. It's not as calm in our lives maybe as it normally is. And that doesn't mean that these practices are ineffective, but it will maybe feel more like triage than like training. Is there anything you want to add right now? So the idea behind some of these things is to grow to a place where we're sharing what's going on inside of ourselves with a joy-filled community and with Christ. I really searched for a picture that would represent the joy in the face of Christ. And the ones that I found that were like iconic photos or drawings, or to me, they really didn't display what I was searching for. And I don't know if this will speak it to you, but I was looking for someone who's happy to be with me, and is showing it with their nonverbals, just with their eyes. And the pictures that were iconic Jesus images, they just didn't hit that for me. So what I realized though, there's the reality of walking with Jesus, and seeing that in the face of Christ, and then going through this practice with someone that is willing to loan their face to Jesus. It puts the joy of Christ present before me, receiving what I'm sharing. And I believe that that's part of God's design for the church and for our sustaining relationships, that confessing your sins to one another is different than just saying it privately, because it gives you the opportunity to receive the nonverbal visuals of forgiveness from another person. The forgiveness really comes from God, but another person can loan God their face and their body in a real way that does something for our relational circuits.
I've got good pictures of joy. Can I
Yeah.
go to them, or
Yeah,
so
go
I have
for
to
it.
stop this share tonight?
Yeah, I think I don't need the PowerPoint pieces now. I wouldn't mind, while Tim's looking for those, I'd love to hear questions I might not have the answers to those questions, but I'd like to hear what they are. If I don't have answers, I will investigate with knowledgeable friends over the coming week.
I don't necessarily have a question, but I do think it's interesting being the parent of 3 boys adopted out of the foster care system who were, they didn't even come into our house until they were 4 years old or older. They missed a lot of this foundation, and they jump into bad, scary at the drop of a hat. And it's so, and shame spiral. I live with 3 boys that shame spiral all the time. And it's been really fascinating how I've really concentrated on letting my eyes light up whenever they walk into the room and just taking time to just look at them. And it's weird how that is so uncomfortable for them, like really uncomfortable, where that's comforting for Carson, who is our biological child, super comforting. I mean, I could just sit there and stare at him and, with love, like he's my little baby that I delight in. For the other boys, it freaks them out, like really uncomfortable. So I've just been using the words from Emmanuel journaling that, I just caught the very, very end of our retreat, but I've been using I just like to be with you. I just like to sit here with you. I'm just sitting here with you. And the words seem to be better than the actual looking at them. They're just not ready attachment wise for the other piece. So it's really fascinating brain development and how trauma plays into it.
Yeah.
These are the pictures that I thought of when Kim was talking about joy.
That's sweet.
Because we have, and I don't know if I can go to the next one.
I think so. I'll try it. Oops.
Yeah, because we realized we have these same pictures with everybody in our life holding the twins for the first time. Like they're all making this face.
Particularly when they were able to like scoop both of them up at once or have the 2 of them in their arms. It was like, oh my goodness, I'm thinking about what you said, Darla, and there's more, and I'm not an expert in it, but I would love to keep talking about this piece even next time, because the beauty of the Spirit of God is the regeneration of our minds and our souls. It in the lower levels of triggering, those initial fears, they don't disappear, but good can be added when like when we become practiced at experiencing the presence of God in the midst of what's difficult, and knowing even when I feel like this, God is happy to be with me right now, I don't think we'll have a lot of time to talk about this tonight, but the messages that the verbal messages that Christ receives from God at his baptism before he goes out into the wilderness to be tested are about how much he's loved. This is my beloved son in whom I'm well pleased. Listen to him. Like I'm affirming his identity, and I want you guys to know it, but I feel like I want him to know it before he goes on to the next thing that he's doing, which is going to be really hard, well, I know from friends who know more than I do, and I think this from your own study of attachment, that growing these attachments is possible, but working through trauma is hard, and it takes a long time, and it's not something that we expect to fully disappear, right?
Well, and I love that really the whole world, the more they study the brain, comes back to this piece, which is God in us, really. The experts won't necessarily say God in us, but they talk about you just have to look at them like they're your beloved child and like that baby that you just brought home from the hospital, and how you just are so in love with them, even though they look like, a wrinkled monkey or whatever, but they're so precious to you. And anyway, but that's the Father's love for us, right? So
Yeah.
I love that Jesus in the desert, when Satan's tempting him, and he says, my nourishment is every word that flows from the mouth of God. And like Kim was just saying, the last word that Jesus had heard from the mouth of God was, "You are my beloved son." Mm-hmm. And Satan's temptation was, prove that you're the son of God. And his response was, my daddy says he loves me. Mm-hmm. And that's what nourishes me. Mm-hmm. And I love that picture of we are his beloved.
Mm-hmm. I think we'll stop our recording. We don't have to end our talking, but just so that it can be shared. Can this be shared?